Hello, welcome to episode 99 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. That's right, 99 for 100. I think we might just fucking stop. I'm fucking with you. But, seriously, we have something in mind. We're going to see if it works out, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun if it does. So, look forward to that coming up in about 2 weeks. They'll be like, oh god, will that be like the 24th? The 24th-ish that week. Probably our 100th episode. I'm real excited. I know Tracy is. It's going to be a blast. But that is not this episode. This is episode 99, which is about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the 1988 live-action / animated masterpiece directed by Robert Zemeckis and produced by Steven Spielberg, head animator Richard Williams. It is... it's so great. This episode is really just going to be us gushing about how much we love this movie and all the sort of like quirky, goofy weirdness of it, and as well as talking about some of the weirder and sort of more fun production aspects that are involved in something like making a live-action cast interact with cartoon characters in the 1980s. How do we do that? It's really cool. It's really interesting. If you, for some reason, have not seen it, go do that. It's honestly one of my favorite movies of all time. So, as always, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, go ahead and like, subscribe, rate us on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. We would really just go ahead and appreciate the hell out of that. Thank you so much for listening. Love you. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Robin.
And so there's kind of a storied history behind us wanting to do this particular film, but honestly, it had come up on Twitter with a friend of ours, Josh, who had mentioned it, and we're just like, a couple scheduling things had happened, and we're just like, you know what, we'll figure that out another time, but we still want to give it to talk about it, just because the film itself is so fascinating that we'd be doing a disservice to not mention it. And chances are you've already seen this movie, especially if you've read the description and aptly figured out, like, oh, yes, I'm familiar with that one. Robin, would you tell them what movie we're reviewing today?
We are today reviewing Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Yes.
Which is a 1988 Touchstone picture.
Yes, which is technically known as the corporate adult division of Disney, because anything that has too much sexy stuff or swearing or whatever, they're like, we can't have this with the Disney brand
associated with the mouse.
Well, they can't use like the classic Disney castle thing with it, so they're just like, well, we can use Touchstone because it looks like someone shit on a rock, but like as for the rest of it, I mean, the whole history behind this movie is completely fascinating, because with this movie we wouldn't have such gems as Space Jam or others. I mean, well, Cool World was kind of totally copying this, but hey, also Detective Pikachu, also Sonic the Hedgehog. There you go. Like the whole melding of animation and live action had been a thing for a long time, especially if you're familiar with there's Anchors Away, which was a Gene Kelly movie from 1945. Best known for, there's a particular scene where Gene Kelly dances with Jerry the mouse from Tom and Jerry. But yeah, I mean, the entire history of this movie is just, so much of it is tech focused, and it makes sense when you understand that the director is Robert Zemeckis, who was on the Back to the Future movies, Forrest Gump, like a ton of classic films, like most of probably your favorite movies from the 80s for sure. And your boy Steven Spielberg, Stevie Spiels, had executive produced it. So do you want to give a little bit more background about the history of this, Robin, or begin the synopsis?
So I can give you the synopsis. I didn't quite catch the...
Essentially, it was based on a book, but...
Yeah, it's based on a book called
there's not a ton of similarities.
Yeah, so I think... Well, so okay. So the book is called Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which is about Roger Rabbit as a comic character, like a cartoon strip, that I think is trying to do something a little different from this, which is obviously like doing a lot of things like paying homage to various ages or stages of animation, if you
Yeah,
will.
like definitely classic animation for sure.
Oh,
And
so
like,
much like Golden Age.
oh yeah, and so with the original book in Roger Rabbit, he's supposed to be like this character that was in a comic strip, but he wanted to get his own like featured strip or something. So I think he technically kind of fakes his own death, where like there's this very bizarre situation where I guess that they can make like a duplicate of themselves, like a stunt double basically, and then that was the version of him that like it looked like he was murdered, but it turns out that his double actually killed him or something. It's very weird, but
yeah, like just reading the synopsis is very strange.
Yeah.
It's a little more straightforward here.
oh yeah, they streamlined it so much more. It's very much like a noir kind of movie, just with a very more colorful cast.
It's so good.
It's so great. Oh my god,
The way it, like,
rewatching
blends.
this was
So,
just
okay, so if
unbelievable.
I know. You know what's amazing to me is like rewatching. I was like, I know I've seen this movie a fair number of times, but like it's amazing to me how much just like sticks in my brain.
Oh yeah,
from this movie.
and especially because when you see it as a kid, like mostly you're just kind of engrossed in how they blend them so well into the environment. But now watching it
really
as an
do.
adult, everything about like the making of is just ridiculous. Like
it's so
like they're
interesting.
put so much work into it. Like literally putting catwalks above the Ink and Pink Club section for the octopus that has like a bunch of different drinks and stuff all going at once. That was just puppeteering. Like it's we'll get into it, but my god, it's just
Okay,
this
so
is the kind of shit that I live for, guys.
It's amazing.
Cool.
So if you haven't seen this movie,
How dare you?
Who Framed? Yeah, first of all, get out. I don't know why you're even here, listening to a podcast about it.
Yeah, seriously, where do you get off?
So the rough synopsis is this: Eddie Valiant, a former private eye. And still active, but he's paid to...
He's kind of disgraced. He's got alcoholic tendencies after his brother died.
Alcoholic tendencies is putting it mildly.
Yeah, okay. He's a raging alcoholic with severe PTSD and depression.
Like, it's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
In some ways, like...
But it's also very sad.
It's very sad, but it's like,
the circumstances behind it are silly, but also... If it happened in real life, it would be very fucked up.
Yeah. But so he's this alcoholic sort of shadow of who he used to be detective.
Yeah.
He gets hired by
it was
it was
Arcane. Yeah, it was Arcane Maroon, who was the head of Maroon Cartoons. That is the studio that employs Baby Herman and Roger Rabbit, who are like two of like the biggest stars for their particular cartoon studio.
Yeah.
And they exist in this world with the other humans. They're called Toons, so they interact with people normally, kind of just like on BoJack Horseman with like the animal people.
Yeah, so it's sort of this weird thing where like Toons are not just like obviously it doesn't delve into what the sort of implications of this, but like Toons exist in Toontown, which is sort of like a property, like a physical space sort of loosely in LA, right?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be just some kind of neighborhood or subdivision of LA.
That's really what it kind of feels like, is almost like a borough, if you will.
Yeah, almost like if you were going to be taking a trip to Orange County or something, like from LA.
Yeah,
where it's like it's
something
there,
like
but
this.
there's like a very obvious large swath of land that is very desirable for certain characters in the movie.
Yeah, so he's hired to investigate Eddie Valiant is hired to investigate Roger Rabbit's wife, Jessica Rabbit.
Played by Kathleen Turner, you girl, Sue Collini.
Uncredited in this film.
Yeah, well, Amy Irving was credited as her singing role, but yeah, I don't know why they didn't credit her, because she freaking deserves it.
I guess Kathleen Turner didn't want to be credited in it.
Makes me sad.
Because of her relationship with Robert Zemeckis from previous movies, I guess.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say a romantic thing. I was like, okay, I could see
No.
that.
I actually imagine that's probably in the same way that, like, Robin Williams actually didn't want to be part of the marketing for Aladdin, which, of course, as we all know, Disney was like, that's hilarious.
You don't tell Disney to not use you in marketing. Everything they do is marketing. You're going to be used in marketing.
Well, we don't need to go into it, but like Lindsay Ellis does a whole video on like the whole thing surrounding that.
It's a good one. You should check it out. And also, it redeems Fern Gully in so many ways. If you were suspect on Fern Gully, give it a watch. Just be like, oh, okay.
All right. Yeah. Anywho, so Toontown is the space that exists. The Toons come from it. The Toons get employed in the real world through Marvin Acme and Arcane Maroon cartoons and Disney and things like this, right? Mm-hmm. So Eddie Valiant gets hired to look up Jessica Rabbit, who it turns out is literally playing patty cake with Marvin Acme,
So
which, by the
stupid.
way, it's the dumbest thing, but also to me is kind of the funniest way of like coming up with a metaphor for sex.
Yeah, no, I like it, especially like Jessica's response is that, well, okay, so Eddie goes to the
I
Ink and
hope
Paint
you're
Club.
proud of those pictures you took.
Yeah, exactly. How Eddie actually does his investigation is he goes to the Ink and Paint Club, which is
It's like a nightclub.
Yeah, it's a nightclub that's it's for humans, but it has tunes operating it. So it's almost kind of like the Cotton Club or like any of those. This was apparently a thing back in like the 40s and 50s, is that there will be like these entertainment or social clubs for white patrons to go to, but they would have people of color or black people or Hispanic people catering to them. Yeah, so that is supposed to be like a direct analogy for that. So
yeah, well, that's we're not gonna jump into this whole, but
we don't have to, but that's kind of what the parallel is. So
yeah. What's interesting to me about that is like if we push further back into the history of minstrelsy, I think there's something there which is interesting. Probably not. We're not gonna explore it here, but certainly I think that's worth considering.
Especially with the depiction of Jessica Rabbit, who is like, she's presented in, I mean, honestly, I don't think there's a single person in this world that is not attracted to Jessica Rabbit. Like, if you say you're not, you're a fucking liar.
I don't buy it.
And also, she's a really interesting character. Like, she actually is. She's very
movie,
smart and very, like, she cares about Roger, clearly.
So I'll come.
Yeah,
and I'll come back to it later, but there's actually a theory about Jessica Rabbit that someone posited on the internet that I saw that I really like, but we'll come back to that later.
Cool. Yeah, go for it.
So, basically, Roger Rabbit finds out that his wife is cheating, quote unquote, and goes, like, kind of loses his shit, and then the next morning, Marvin Acme is found dead, and it's suspected, the evidence points to Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, and a safe was dropped on his head. That was how he was killed, and that was in his own factory, actually, because that's where the investigation takes place.
Right. So Eddie gets dragged into that investigation because he's friends with some of the old with the sergeant who's in charge of the investigation. And what it turns out is there's a conspiracy to kill R.K. Maroon and... Well, not R.K. Maroon, but
to kill Marvin Acme, because Marvin Acme, he owns the deed to Toontown, so he owns it as a property, basically.
Right, as like a parcel of land. And so what it turns out is that the villain of this movie, Judge Doom, played by your boy, Christopher Lloyd.
Just something about, like, he is just every single movie he's ever been in, he chews so much scenery. He's just like DuckTales. Like every single fucking movie.
Yeah, I don't think he knows how to not chew scenery.
He's just a ham. I don't know.
He just hams shit up, and I love it.
And also the fact that Judge Doom's cape, it flutters in the wind very subtly.
Yes.
But every single scene that he's in, it happens too. And I'm just like, everything about his character is just fascinating too.
He's so good.
Yeah.
So it turns out that Judge Doom is trying to acquire Toontown to pave over it to create the freeway system, which, like...
I love that his dream is so boring and stupid, arguably
it's so fucking banal.
Yeah, it's arguably the worst part of living in LA too. Is that everyone's like, there's no public transportation, so we have to drive everywhere, and it makes life a living hell.
Yes, right. Like it's so funny, and you know what it makes me? It's something I definitely didn't appreciate as a kid because obviously I didn't know, but like looking back on it, I'm like, God, the writers really fucking hated LA traffic.
Oh yeah, I mean, like
and understandably so. But just them twisting the knife on that is so funny.
Well, yeah, it's like when you take like the concept of having a city that large and no real reliable public transportation infrastructure. It is cartoonish. Like how in the hell can so many people exist in this space and not have like if you are required to have a car, like that's automatically like a huge barrier for so many people. And it's just like, I think it's just like his idea just being like, there'll be car dealerships and fast food restaurants and billboards 1,000 feet tall. My God, it'll be beautiful.
It'll be beautiful. I love that. I love it.
It's so stupid.
It's so dumb and so funny. And my favorite part is like, again, So, like, he reveals this plan, and then we find out that Judge Doom is also a cartoon.
Dude, this freaked the shit out of me when I was a kid. I was like, seeing it as an adult, it's still creepy as hell.
Yeah, it's still terrifying. Well, so we find out that he's a toon. He's the toon who killed Eddie's brother.
Yeah.
Hence the sort of source of his issues, more or less. And so they end up killing Judge Doom.
With the same thing that he used to kill toons earlier in the movie, which is called the dip, which I think it's supposed to be a mixture of turpentine, paint thinner, and acetone, I think, which is like, it's basically like that. And that's like, it's honestly pretty funny because that is basically what you would use to strip paint from something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is like the Ink and Paint Club. Yeah, like just
which is pretty funny. So, well, yeah, no, those, I think that's one thing.
It is still grisly to see that poor little shoe die, too.
I know!
I was so heartbroken. I was like, no, he's so cute.
I know, he just was loving on him, and then suddenly you kill him. Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
But, so that's, like, that, to me, is still very, like, those scenes are still very fucked up as an adult.
Yeah.
However, my favorite bit of trivia about this movie is that Tim Curry was originally their choice for Judge Doom.
My boy Tim Curry's back. It's always time for a plate of curry.
But literally, all the producers, the writer, the director were like, this is too scary. This does not work.
I mean, honestly, that could check out for Tim Curry, though. He's got that kind of like charisma, and he can get that kind of anger too. I think.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just sort of imagining him from Legend, just doing Judge Doom, and like I don't want it.
Honestly, the instant that I even saw that trivia, I just thought of the same head turn thing that, like, after Judge Doom gets rolled over by the steamroller, and then he reinflates himself and his eyes pop out like he's wearing glass eyes, and then his little red eye things pop out and everything. I was imagining Tim Curry doing the same thing, and I'm like, nope, out. No, I'm out of here.
Don't need it in my life.
Not like this.
Not like this. Yeah, it's wild. So, the way the movie ends is we find out that the Marvin Acme, who owned the deed to Toontown, his last will and testament stated that the Toons become the owners of Toontown upon his death.
Yeah, and also he wrote it with disappearing, reappearing ink, which is
because he
likes to keep people on their toes. I guess just be like, it's only our livelihood. It's where we live.
It's just because he's a fucking troll and a piece of
I mean, if I had a factory that had so many props and like toys and shit like that, I would probably do the same thing. You know? Yeah. I can afford to be eccentric. I own all these props.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's like the very sort of like broad strokes version of this thing. I mean, that's sort of the broadest version of the synopsis I can give you. So other things I want to like sort of hit on as some of my favorite things. So again, this is like a noir. It plays itself out like a noir film, right? And that's pretty obvious from the fact that like Eddie Valiant is definitely first of all, his name is Eddie Valiant.
Yeah, of course. Played by Bob Hoskins of all people.
Fuck yeah.
And I thought he did great too, because I looked at some trivia beforehand that said that I guess they were trying to get Bill Murray and he could just never get back in contact with them in time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, honestly, I'm really glad that Bill Murray didn't get it. I don't think he would have been able to deliver it the same way. Because like Bob Hoskins, he can be forceful at one time, but he's still got good comedic timing. And I think Bill Murray is overrated. I'm sorry. I don't think he can emote the kind of way that Bob Hoskins did as Eddie.
My problem, I like Bill Murray, but I think that like he's just so good at the deadpan, the sort of like
he can be himself
straight.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the same thing as like what we get here.
Yeah, I mean, I think he works perfectly fine in something like Ghostbusters or Stripes or Groundhog Day, but I just don't see him being like. Here's the thing: I don't think he would play that well off of a character like Roger, because Bill is just as kind of like, he's got the same kind of like silly, weird sense of humor, but he's much more restrained in terms of his delivery, and I don't think that it would make sense with him against Roger. Like Eddie Valiant, sure. Because like Eddie is just like, or with Bob Hoskins, his delivery is a lot more straightforward. And also just hearing him do a Brooklyn accent is really funny because he is so English.
Here's the thing, man. I didn't know that, right? Because the two things I knew Bob Hoskins from as a kid were this and the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Hook, because in Hook you can hear his accent
verbatim.
Yeah,
he's in Hook too. So I did know him from Hook, but honestly, I like Hook a lot. It weirdly is something I just haven't seen a lot for some reason.
That's fair. I mean, you haven't hung out with me enough to watch it that much.
I maybe that's it. Whereas I've watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit at least a dozen times in my life.
Oh yeah.
If not more. So because we've got this hard-boiled detective thing, you also have like one of my favorite ship dynamics, which is this sort of like what you have with Eddie and Dolores.
Oh yeah, the straight-laced detective and his surly but flirtatious love interest.
Yeah, and
you've been dabbling with watercolors, Eddie. Dolores is a great counterpoint to Eddie.
She's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
And like the fact that she just like, what I like about those characters, right, is you have the hard-boiled detective who's like, kind of shitty and kind of like, has a bug up his ass and things like this. But then you have Dolores, who's like...
just not having it.
Just not dealing with any of his bullshit, right? Like, that's my favorite thing in or a dynamic like that, is when you have the one character just like, no, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I mean...
Like, I caught you with your pants down!
I mean, and also, like, just taking the setting itself is that it's 1947 in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. You can't get more classic noir than that, like Double Indemnity, The Maltese Falcon, all these different movies. It took place in similar stuff like that, so... And also, like, the introduction of, like, a character like Jessica Rabbit, who, like, she has the hair of Veronica Lake, who was a very famous movie star from that time, like, the late 30s and early 40s. So,
sure.
like, like, down to that, and, like, her whole appeal is, like, the femme fatale, even though, like, she's not romantically interested in Eddie, just, because...
No.
Just because she looks that way does not necessarily mean that she's cheap or anything. So...
Right, well, that's the...
Yeah,
that's
like, I'm not bad, just drawn that way.
Yeah, but that's like that joke, but that's also like a pretty iconic line.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just so interesting the way they sort of play with these stereotypes. And then, like, again, amidst all this, you have the fact that, like, you have Roger Rabbit, who, like, as much as there are other characters who are cartoons who act goofy, I don't think until we get into Toontown that any of them reach the same level as Roger.
No, like Roger, he's basically just a generator for insanity.
Yeah, he's always on. There is no off switch.
He just can't turn it off.
Yes.
But he really respects Goofy.
He loves Goofy.
Yep.
That guy's a genius.
Did you know about the aspects about Roger's design too? Because like his entire look is just like a bunch of different pieces from different characters. So like he's a rabbit like Bugs Bunny. He's got Mickey's gloves. He has Goofy's overalls, and I think he has Droopy Dog's hair.
Yes.
And also Porky Pig's bow tie. So like his whole look is just like, and also like he's kind of got like a clown color scheme, which I think Richard Williams wanted to make deliberate. Like, but he also looks like an American flag. Like there's so many different like nuances of it, which I think is really it's very smart, like the way that they chose to design him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I love it.
Yeah,
right?
It also speaks to like the Tex Avery kind of look that he's going for too, because they were all known for being like very much into slapstick and like very fast movement and everything.
Yeah. God, the shtick in this movie is just so good.
Dude, the opening cartoon alone is mind-blowing. Because,
oh my God, every
and this is
time.
And guys, this is Richard Williams, so this is like Thief and the Cobbler, man. Like,
man,
among other things, like he's done a bunch of things, but like
he's a monster.
But
right?
it's like there's a reason he wrote the book on animation that every animation student has to have, and there's a reason because he knows what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, I guess one of the things which is like so shitty in retrospect, so he didn't want to do it, and he wasn't going to work in LA. Mm-hmm. So they created a production studio in England to work for him.
Yeah. I mean, that's not unheard of, though, because Stanley Kubrick does that, too. Well, he did at the time, anyway.
Well, so here's the shitty thing, right, is the way that they convinced him was they would help him distribute The Thief and the Cobbler.
Oh,
and
God
as we
damn
know,
it. that didn't happen.
Never quite happened. So, like, he just kind of got the raw deal there, which is so shitty.
Yeah.
I think what we I'm glad we got what we got for Thief and the Cobbler.
No, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, it's
imagine
like
if it ever got finished.
I mean, especially because like he was most of the way done with it. Well, yeah, kind of. He was pretty far into it at that point anyway, and it's just like when you have a pet project like that that you've just been working on forever, and it is your baby, like that is the movie that you've been wanting to make forever. But then Disney's just like, you can just help us do this instead, also because they knew that they had that history with him too, so they could kind of use that for leverage, and then it would guarantee other money for him to use to make the movie. So it's very messy, and it's not great. But I mean, you can't argue with the results that were on this movie because like there's a reason that it sparks such a new interest in animation too, because Disney was basically dead in the water by 86. Like even The Great Mouse Detective did not make that much money, but then they started getting more like voice actors and stuff, trying to reinvigorate their department.
Right. Well, I think this is also like, this is right before the Disney Renaissance, and like this was also like this was, I think, at the same time as like the big sort of shift in terms of leadership from, I don't remember who was in charge before, but off to Jeffrey Katzenberg and Michael Eisner. Yeah. I
forget who it was. It wasn't, I don't remember. I know what you're referring to. It was the guy that was operating it for like basically once the Black Cauldron had shit the bed, and then they were just on like this downward spiral thing ever since Walt had died. And just, and it got messy, but like they clearly needed a better sense of direction, which is where Eisner and Katzenberg came in. So, but yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't really have much of a head before they brought Eisner and Katzenberger in.
Yeah, they didn't have a very definitive like idea of where they wanted to take things. So
yeah, and I think
this helped to streamline it quite a bit. So especially with Steven Spielberg, like man, like the guy knows how to make money. And also to make really interestingly made movies.
Yes.
Yeah, because all the behind the scenes stuff is unbelievable. Like just having like pipes and stuff, and all the puppeteers, and like did you see? There was a reference that they had. I know this is kind of tangential from the story, but. So when they were actually figuring out how to do the blocking and the lighting for certain scenes, like say the bar scene where Judge Doom and the Weasels show up trying to find Roger, who's in like the little hidden room thing, they had made these scale, I guess like latex or plastic models that would be like their complete size, including the ears, so that they could get an idea of like what the lighting would look like and how it would bounce off of them. And also just so that the actors, when they're acting, because there's nothing there, when like say Judge Doom is trying to hold Roger's head into the little what is it, like the steel drum thing full of dip, like, they have to like figure out it all spatially before they do those scenes, right? So
that was a little rough watching it, because we were watching on my roommate's like 4K whatever the fuck TV, and it like some things, if you're paying close attention, just look rough. Like you can see when Judge Doom is holding Roger, you can see that Christopher Lloyd is literally just sort of clenching his fist at one point, which is a little rough. But then also there's like, it's just so impressive, like the lengths they went to make it look good.
Yeah. Like say
from
the scene
stuff
when,
like that to like the way the shading moves and stuff.
Yeah, and also the so there's another particular scene where Roger is, when he first meets up with Eddie, the Weasels come looking for him, and then Eddie has to pretend to be doing his laundry or washing dishes or whatever. And there's a certain scene where like Roger is stuck in the sink, and then eventually once the Weasels leave, he gets up and then he spits out this huge line of water out. That was literally a pipe that they had that just came up out of the sink and spit water out. Like Baby Herman's entire thing is that they made a model rig of the hand that he had with the cigar, and then they just animated over it. Like it's the craziest shit. Like I couldn't believe it because I looked at it, and then they made like, in order to control it, they had this almost Power Glove looking thing that was like a way of like them controlling it remotely, so that there would be sensors in certain parts of the hand, the wrist, and then the forearms, so that whenever it was moving, it would tilt when the actual performer did it.
So it would move the cigar.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The smoke would be legitimate.
Yeah, especially because like Baby Herman himself, like the amount of space that they have for animating him, he occupies, or like, his big scene is near the beginning of the movie where he goes up and confronts Eddie basically and is trying to get him to represent Roger instead.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's only got the confines of the carriage and then his cigar basically to work with. It's like, it's unbelievable. Like if you have not seen this shit, like just look it up on YouTube. Most of them are on there.
So
like
good.
It's so cool. Like this is 1988. Like 1987.
Yeah.
Like it's they worked with the stuff that they had. And it just looks incredible. It still looks incredible. Like there's going to be some hiccups and everything, but for the most part, it's just a great piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Some interesting things, like just like bits of sort of like trivia that they unfortunately couldn't keep in. So they had the weasels, which were, those also freaked me out. Them dying late in the movie freaked me out as a kid. It still freaks me out a little bit, but
fair, yeah.
They were originally supposed to be a goof on the Seven Dwarves. There were supposed to be 7 of them, which were literally supposed to be stupid, smart, ass, greasy, wheezy, and psycho.
Mm-hmm. But then I think they just ended up combining smart and ass together.
Probably.
Yeah, so the main one that's voiced by Squiggy from like Laverne and Shirley, he's the smart ass one.
Oh my god, he is.
The greasy one, I think he's supposed to be a take on.
He's in like the green suit.
Yeah, that guy. I think he's supposed to be some kind of take on, like, you remember the zoot suits from the 40s?
Yes.
I think he's supposed to be like that. And then there's the psycho one, there's the dumb one that's wearing the little pinwheel hat thing, whatever. And then the one that's smoking constantly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's a shame that they didn't get the whole like 7 Dwarves thing, but it's sort of interesting.
That would have been a pain in the ass to animate too.
Well, yeah. Well, that's also why
they didn't.
That's also why they didn't. I guess they also, when they were conceiving of Judge Doom, wanted him to have a briefcase that literally has a kangaroo court in it. Like he just pops it open, and there are 12 little kangaroo jurors that he would have, which I think, like, they were like, I think realistically that's probably good as the thing they cut out because it's a little too goofy for Doom. Mm-hmm. But also I think it's a dead giveaway that he's a cartoon, like, right away.
Yeah, like the fact that he would even have that or that he would give it any legitimacy, because everything about Judge Doom prior to the ending with the big revelation is that he is extremely stoic and cruel and mean-spirited and just like, I mean, he's basically like a bloodhound because of like how ardent he is about trying to get Roger Rabbit and prosecute him by any means. All because, so it turns out that he is the main stakeholder in the development company Cloverfield Industries or whatever it is.
Cloverfield.
Which is the company that is trying to demolish Toontown to put up the freeway, which is like awful, but also a thing that happens quite a bit, especially during that time in the 40s where they were just trying to expand out everything. Like that's like, every major city has had that. Like Detroit's had it, Chicago's had it, New York's had it, all of them. So.
Well, that's literally pretty much what happened too, right? There was a company that bought out the Red Car, their version of...
Yeah, that was a real thing in the 40s. That was a whole conspiracy thing tied to it too. That's why they referenced it. It's crazy. Like, if you really look that up, there's a number of podcasts about it too.
Oh, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. So that's like a whole thing, but it's super interesting. I think, you know what it... Well, they remind me of each other now because realistically, this comes first. But you know what it makes me think of now is, what was it? The Nice Guys, was that?
Oh, the one from the 70s? The Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe movie?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I also love that movie, but I think they strike that same chord of like this historical thing that's like this big conspiracy that when you actually like investigate it seems preposterous, but it is what happened.
Yeah, like I think the whole thing was, well, at least in The Nice Guys, there's this murder of a porn star that happens, which is like the MacGuffin that sets off a lot of other things, which is tied to smog outbreaks in the 70s and the oil crisis also in the 70s with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, who are two nominally talented con artists and like private investigators
and private eyes.
Yeah, pretty much. Ryan Gosling a lot less so. He's just like, I love how dumb he is in that movie. It's so funny.
He's just such a meathead in that movie. I love it.
It's great.
I gotta watch that movie again.
I showed it to Ken. He liked it.
It's great.
Yeah, we had a good time.
we're off the subject.
But anyway, no, like I do like that whole incorporation of like having an actual real world kind of conspiracy or like coup thing that's going on with something involving like infrastructure or public funds getting diverted or something into something bigger. Like that kind of stuff is really interesting to me, especially when they can incorporate it in a story like this. You know, where it's not 100%. Just one thing; it's a lot of things. You know.
Yeah. When it's just again, it's just so interesting, and it I don't know. I just love when they do things like that.
Me too. Yeah.
So, what are the things we want to sort of hit on? I mean, there's so much to gush about in this movie.
Honestly, just Toontown as an idea in general, because we could just spend about cool. 10 minutes there. You can watch the entire scene when Eddie gets there, the behind-the-scenes part of it, to see all the different blue screens that they had, the sets that they incorporated, all the forced perspective to make things look more different, like the storyboards and everything that they combined together. You can find that on YouTube, too, because like the entire thing is just so weird. Like, it's just so odd seeing, like... I don't know. It was just like seeing characters like the ones from Fantasia. Like they tried to get as many time accurate ones as possible. The only snafu I could think of were the penguins in the Ink and Paint Club, because I kind of got the impression that they were supposed to be the ones from Mary Poppins, which would have been in the 60s. I don't know if that's accurate, but that was what I guessed it was. And I was just like, wait, that's a different time thing. But,
yeah, you could be right.
Yeah.
I just want to point out some of my favorite bits in this movie.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna try and do my 3 favorite bits.
I'll do
right
the
here.
same, I guess.
Yeah. So one of them is so dumb, but when they go into the speakeasy room in the back of the bar, and Roger pokes his eyes out of the socket and knocks over the salt shaker.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why that stupid visual gag gets me every fucking time.
They've got reach, I guess.
Yeah, he's a cartoon. That's how it works.
Yeah.
That one, the booby trap joke. Every time.
Yep.
Nice booby trap. And then just... I mean, realistically, most of what Roger does is just so funny, but...
Like him smashing the plates over and over again. No pain.
No pain.
No pain.
No pain. No! That one. The other one... So the other one that didn't catch me as a kid, but I think now is probably one of the cleverer jokes, is the fucking dipshit in the bar...
Oh, God. Yeah, that guy.
Pretending to give up Roger Rabbit, and then making a joke about Harvey.
Yep.
Which was so funny in retrospect.
Yeah.
Another one, so this isn't one of my favorite bits, but I noticed this rewatching that I never had before. When they're in the speakeasy, and Roger is talking about the importance of laughter as like a weapon, as a part of being human sort of thing, right? He's literally standing on a soapbox.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good. I'm like, fuck me. How have I never seen that before? Anywho, what would you say are your 3 bits?
Okay, so I've got kind of a mix. Like, so some of mine are kind of sad, but my favorite, I got a thing for sad things sometimes.
You are what you are, honey.
It's fine. Okay, so probably one of my favorite gags is just honestly the whole piano playoff thing between Daffy and Donald is so good. Because it's just like the contrast of seeing them, because like this is early Daffy, which is like he's not quite asshole Daffy, he's still like very wacky, weird, spontaneous Daffy, which is a good time. And also, like, as an adult, Donald Duck is probably my favorite out of the main Disney, like, 5 characters.
Really?
I mean, like, so here's the thing. I like Goofy from a Goofy movie, but I've always kind of identified with Donald because the older I get, the angrier I am with a bunch of stupid shit happening.
Sure.
And I'd just be like, I kind of don't mind that he just kind of lets it get to him sometimes, and, like, he lashes out and shit. Like, not usually in, like, a very harmful way, but, like, he just gets mad, like... This is going to be kind of a tangent, but have you ever seen that meme of like Donald is starting to get into like his weird fighting pose thing, and there's like this Irish stereotype guy that starts dancing to him, like where he puts a fiddle between his hands while he's doing it, and then he starts dancing. I don't know, like that made me think of that
so much.
And among that, like There's also the bit where Eddie does see Marvin Acme and Jessica playing patty cake, but like Jessica's like bizarre moans at playing patty cake. She's like, oh.
Again, it's just...
it's so goofy and weird.
Yes, again, it's just a hilarious metaphor.
Yeah, it's just like it's just and him flashing between all the different pictures to make it look like it's animated. Like that's so...
Yeah, it looks like a flip book, basically.
Yeah, it's so classic. And then this is my third one. This is the sad one. Is just like initially when we're kind of getting a better idea of like Eddie's whole worldview and everything, which is when he goes back into Valiant and Valiant, the private investigator office, and we see more about the history of his brother Teddy. Meaning that because they shared the same office and they even shared like opposite sides of a desk. Like after Teddy had died, Eddie did not interrupt anything on Eddie's desk. He left it exactly how it was when he died, and it's dusty. And
there's just that sort of slow pan over their office, specifically over his desk.
Yeah, and you can see like their history is that like their father worked with Barnum and Bailey. They were circus clowns. Then they went to the LAPD police academy together. And like it's just also they got Goofy off on espionage charges and they found Huey, Dewey, and Louie. just little like really little moments and stuff like that is just like what makes this movie so special, I think. And honestly, just Jessica as she is like she's become a sex symbol for very obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But like just the way that they flesh out her relationship with Roger and how she's just like Eddie asked her at one point when they're driving back from Toontown after Judge Doom tries to shoot both of them. He asked her, honestly, what are you seeing that guy? And she's like, he makes me laugh. That's cute. I don't know, because like that's with a lot of relationships and stuff like that too. Is like humor tends to be the binding thing between a lot of people. Like, and it's huge. You know, because like that's got to be a lot of life. If you're just angry and sad all the time, it's not a good time for anybody. So
yeah. Well, so one thing I saw in the depths of the internet one time was the supposition that Jessica Rabbit is actually asexual.
Yeah,
and,
I could see that.
You know, like, yeah, right. Like rewatching that movie, like she's not overtly sexual.
No,
in how she is as a person.
Yeah, because she's affectionate with Roger in a way of that, you know, like she'll want to like hold hands or like kiss him and stuff. But there's no like overt implication of her really wanting to have sex with him or anything, or you know, like that whole concept is that she doesn't use her looks as a way of really manipulating people. She's she can be very smart and wily and everything. But like the whole thing is that like you kind of just get more the implication that she has a very good understanding with Roger about like just him as a person. Like I think she just fundamentally has a good understanding and relationship with him. I didn't really get very strong sexual vibes from her either. Like that, it literally is just how she's drawn. You know, like that's incidental.
Right. Well, the other thing is like that. She, again, they're like, it's a joke, but also like the thing she does with Marvin Acme that is considered cheating is playing patty cake.
Yeah. And she's like, at least this time, take off the hand buzzer. Like, that would have pissed me off too.
I would have. Yes.
God.
But that's sort of an interesting
I actually have heard that.
Like it.
Yeah, now that you've mentioned that theory thing, I could totally see that because like it's there's I don't know. I think it's like the reason that she slaps Eddie about the whole thing is more that it's just intrusive and like he, you know, like just that he was being creepy, like even though she knows that he was planted to put there and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, like you really don't get any strong sexual implications from her at all in terms of her conduct with other people. That's all just a projection from the actual audience. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I guess supposedly this is probably something suspect, but I guess when they hadn't finished sketching or drawing Jessica Rabbit yet when they were filming.
Yeah.
And so I guess the way they had him do that scene was be like, all right, go ahead and just like idealize a sexual fantasy and talk to that person, right? And I guess Hoskins is like, yeah, I didn't dream up something as extreme as her.
he's like, even this is a bit on the nose, fellas.
Yes.
I mean, look, we get it. Animators are sexually repressed. At least a lot of the male ones are.
Listen, sometimes people are just horny. It's fine.
Look, I get it. Rule 34 exists for a reason. People got some stuff to work out. Is what it is.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just don't do anything gross or underage. Okay? That's it.
Yeah, seriously.
That's it. That's all you have to do. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, honestly, to sum it up, like, if you haven't seen this movie, just do yourself a solid and find it. It's been out for a while.
Fantastic.
Yeah, technically it had its 30th anniversary 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Honestly, to be fair, it really does like stand up. And here's the thing: I hope that they never, ever even attempt to do a reboot of this or like a remake.
Oh God,
because there's no point. Like the whole crux of the story is that when it's taking place in 1947, that is the golden age of animation that's going on now. You know, and it's just like they would be totally doing a disservice to the entire subject if they were to try to remake it. And I really hope that they don't. Because honestly, it's so old hat nowadays with just having CGI characters and everything that it really wouldn't have the same impact that I think it did when it came out. So,
yeah, it's just such a good like wild ride that absolutely you got to see it if you haven't.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't recommend that super little kids watch it because they mostly there's too much dialogue. They won't know what's going on. Honestly,
no, like a noir film doesn't work for a kid.
No,
you can probably show it to like like a preteen at like I think 10 is probably the youngest I would show, but even that. Just because of how fucking, like, honest to God, terrifying Judge Doom is, even as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, any younger, I think it would totally freak them out.
Yeah. And I do want to shout out, like, one thing, like, again, we talked about how, like, Bob Hoskins was good as Eddie in terms of, like, his delivery and things. But I think one thing that's really impressive, the more I think about it, is, right, he's acting at least half the time against cartoons, right?
Nobody else is there.
Right, and he still sells it. And like, for example, when he's trying to saw the handcuffs off them, he has to sit there and move that box himself, right? But also, like, he does some pretty adept physical comedy late in the movie, which is just a hell of a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if he's never had any history in pantomime, that may be another venue he wants to check out. It's like just a hobby.
Well,
he's pretty good at it.
For him.
Yeah.
He's gone now.
I know, but if he
Poor
was,
buddy.
Yeah, I know. I was.
Look me up in heaven. I won't be there, but my movies will. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
It's fine, happens. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just check it out. Let's do our handles then. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Robin, where can they find you?
As always, you can find me on the internet, on Twitter @lobster_writer and on Instagram @lobsterwriter.
Cool.
Tracy, where do they find you?
Thank you, Robin. They can find me on Twitter and Instagram via @TCTroush. You can find our show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. It's basically still dead. I don't know what to tell you. I just have not been prioritizing it, frankly. Yeah, Tumblr is... Yeah. The worst thing that ever happened to Tumblr was when the porn left, honestly. Well, most of the porn. But there's... Some of you guys are creeps. But no, other than that, if it's easier for you to find our episodes on YouTube, we're also on there as well. Just type in Not Joanna Eggs Podcast. You'll find our head logo. All the stuff's on there. They're automatically uploaded. And I guess that's pretty much it. We appreciate you guys listening to this. 100th episode's up next.
It's coming.
We'll find out what we do.
You'll know when we do.
It's a surprise to us, too.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk at you next time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of Not Joanna Eggs. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs, and the outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you use. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everyone. Thanks.